And hello, all you beautiful people. I was going to stream earlier, but some stuff happened at work, and I had to deal with that. But a lot of stuff is happening very quick, but not quick at all, but also very quick. So I figured I would just do a stream. Now, you'll have to bear with me, because what is show prep after all? I know what I want to talk about, I just don't have all the links completely up and running. So, let us take a look at what's happening in the world. The world. Okay, so let me just share this link because there's a lot of there's a lot of insane shit going down. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I'm just posting it. I'm never sure like how quick to start on these because I want to give people a couple minutes to show up. You know what? Okay, before we get into the main, let's just do a fun story. Let's just do a fun little story. So before we get into the main one, let's just let's take a look at this genius geopolitical analysis from the Daily Telegraph because it's just it is what it is, I guess. Okay, all right. Okay, so last October, UK Armed Forces Minister described Russia's Black Sea Fleet as being functionally defeated because this is in fact a naval war. This is in fact a naval war. The entire war is going to come down to the ability of Russia to project naval power in the Black Sea. It's not an air war. It's not a land war. It is a naval war. It's like the Pacific War in World War II. Maybe even more significant, to be honest. I thought using the word defeated was premature then. It would be another 2 months before grain and other trade in and out of Ukraine ports started to recover. Okay. So, let's see here. Russia has lost any surveillance and targeting capability. There's no like Russia has no targeting capability. It has no surveillance because satellites aren't a thing apparently. It's gone. It's gone. Firing a couple like storm shadows at Russian ships in the Black Sea meant that there was no other stuff. I don't know. It is what it is. Okay, vital Russian supply link attacked by Ukraine sea drones. The Kerch Strait Bridge targeted in attack by 2 Ukrainian sea drones. So, like I said, we'll get to the main show in a minute. We'll just start off with this because this is kind of a fun little story. So, this has been the big Moby Dick. This has been the big white whale where they think if we can just blow up the Kerch Strait Bridge, then this whole thing is going to collapse. The entire point of this spring, summer, winter, fall offensive was that they were going to, I think, come down, through here towards Mariupol or something, cut off Crimea from the rest of Russia, and then that was going to lead to a collapse in the Russian government. And then that stuff was all just going to happen. So, but according to them, this is where we're at. In any case, things have moved on. Crimea is now being squeezed, and not just the naval base in Sevastopol. Americans supplied ATACMS ballistic missiles, and President Biden's eventual lift on the ban from using them to hit targets in Russia, entirely legitimately under Article 51 of the UN Charter, means that no place in the theater is now safe from the Ukrainians. But they've been using... Okay, so there's so many retarded things here. It's just kind of like, let's take a step back. So firstly, Ukraine has been using weapons inside of Russia this entire time. Like, they were celebrating all the whole, like, the drone thing and drones hitting all the petroleum refineries and stuff like that. Secondly, they've been using, like, storm shadows and stuff against Crimea since the start of this war. So they're pretending like they weren't shooting it before. Does anyone remember all the times they hit the Kerch Bridge or they hit some like ships in Crimea and they made a huge deal about it? I don't know. Okay, so I don't really get what they're talking about. Also, let's talk about the ATACMS for a minute. So I did try to do some research for this as to how many ATACMS were actually sent. Did I forget to mail myself? Yes. Okay, I forgot to mail my... Okay, because I actually had this... Oh, well, I'll put up the links tomorrow if I remember. I forgot to mail this to myself. I was getting the links together on my other computer. So, from my understanding, the United States approximately produces 500 ATACMS short-range ballistic missiles a year. That is currently, I believe the current production number is about 500. A ATACMS, I believe, has a warhead of 500 pounds. Let's just take a look at this. Yes, approximately 500 per year. Let's see, ATACMS. I believe the warhead size is 500 pounds. Yes, a 500-pound explosive warhead. Okay. So the maximum possible number of ATACMS Ukraine can receive in a year without the U.S. depleting its stockpiles is 500. Okay? That makes sense. Now, I have not been able to figure out how many they actually sent Ukraine, but the number that they were sent in secret in April was around 100. So we'll just, for the sake of argument, we'll say that after the $61 billion got approved, they sent them 200 ATACMS. So they have 200 ATACMS. Now, the Russians do not have something that's a direct equivalent to the ATACMS. The Russians have the Kinjal and Iskander, but those are bigger missiles. Let me see. I think the Iskander is a 1,500. The Iskander, I think, has a bigger warhead. Yeah, the Iskander has a 1,000 to 1,500 pound warhead. So it's about 2 to 3 times the size of the ATACMS. Also, the Iskander has a range of 500 instead of 300 kilometers, and the Iskander is a hypersonic missile, which means it can't be intercepted. So the Russians produce a lot fewer Iskanders than the U.S. produces ATACMS, but I don't think it's directly comparable. I think the most comparable thing that the Russians produce is the Fab 500. Is the Fab 500 glide bomb. Now, the Fab 500 glide bomb does not have quite the range of the... I love this COPE article. Don't fear the 3.3-ton glide bomb. It is overkill. It's massive overkill when a 1.1-ton glide bomb will kill you just fine. Okay, so... Anyways... So the Fab 500 is a standard Soviet 500 pound, 500 kilo, sorry, general purpose bomb, just like a normal free fall bomb that was developed during the Cold War. And they put these glide bomb kits on them so jets can drop them a long distance away and they will glide to the target. Russia claims, I believe, the accuracy is about 5 meters. They're very accurate and extremely cheap. Russia is firing something like 20 of those a day. So just think about that for a second. So sorry, take a step back. Okay, so these have these have an explosive charge of about the same as an ATACMS. So Russia fires as many glide bombs as Ukraine got attacked. So assuming Ukraine, sorry about this, got 100 ATACMS, Russia fires the same amount of ordnance every 5 days just by using their glide bombs. Now, the range on a glide bomb is not as much. The range on a glide bomb, I think, is about 70 to 100 kilometers. But Russia doesn't have to worry about Ukrainian air defense. So I guess the ATACMS has longer range, but Ukraine really has no way to shoot down glide bombs. To my understanding, I'm not even sure if you can actually shoot one down. You can't shoot down hypersonic missiles. So I think Russia produces something like... I think 3,000 is their production they can make. I'm not entirely sure. It's something like that. It's some like extremely high number of just glide. This is not including any of their other missiles. This is including Iskanders. This is including tornadoes and stuff like that. This is just their glide bombs. So what we're supposed to believe, let's see here. Okay, does it say... Okay, glide bombs devastating Ukraine cities on the cheap. I love how that's like an insult. Okay, it's actually more than 20. 200 of them are thought to have been used in just a week on one town. Let's see here. So Zelensky is saying that Russia uses 3,000 glide bombs a month. Okay. So I think... It's not so much I'm disorganized. It's just I've read different things about this. The most commonly cited number I've seen is that Russia produces approximately 3,000 glide bombs a month and uses about 3,000 glide bombs a month. However, these numbers take it with a massive salt mine. It doesn't really matter, though, if they produce 3,000 a year or 3,000 a month or 3,000 a week. The point I'm trying to make is Ukraine got, 100, 200 ATACMS? And that's supposed to completely win the war. Like, that's supposed to somehow be able to do more than, like, the 3,000 glide bombs, do more than the dozen or so Iskanders, the tornadoes, the everything else. These 200 ATACMS, and I'm being generous because it's only confirmed that like it's like 100 to 110. They're going to make the difference. So, anyways, I'm just trying to put this into context because there's never context on any of this. Okay, so an obvious target would be the Kerch bridges. Okay. They still appear to be a critical supply line sustaining not only Russia's troops on the peninsula itself, but the front line along the Dnipro and the land bridge. I don't think that that's the case because Russia built an overland railway. So the Dnipro's up here. So they think if they destroy this bridge, that will cut off Russian supplies there. Why wouldn't they just use the railroads or roads that I don't know. Okay, so they're not at full capacity. In response to this, Russia has built a new rail line. across the land bridge from the east. It has also increased the use of its ferries, allowing more supplies to flow across the strait. The ferries have been hit by ATACMS and are out of use. In other words, there are only two arteries keeping Crimea alive: the new railway and a reduced Kerch bridge, both of which are in ATACMS range. How are you supposed to knock out a railway with a ballistic missile? Maybe I'm just not understanding it. Isn't it pretty easy to review, like to repair railroad tracks? Can't they just blow like a section of track out and then they just repair it like the next day? Like, I don't think repairing rail tracks is that difficult. So it remains unclear whether Joe Biden has allowed the Ukrainians to have unitary warhead ATACMS, which could take the bridges down. But it is clear no matter what ATACMS they have, they can cut the overland railway whenever they like. It could be repaired quite quickly. It is hard to cripple a railway laid over flat country for a long time. But that supply route is clearly no longer to be relied upon. This is the plan. This is the new plan. We're gonna blow up. We're gonna blow up a stretch of track on a flat land, and that's gonna stop the flow of supplies to Crimea. That's the plan. That's the plan. And they're not going to be able to repair that. That is going to make Russia abandon all attempts to supply Crimea. Are ATACMS even accurate enough to hit a piece of rail? I don't know. I could be wrong. I understand that precision guided missiles are quite accurate. That just seems like a very small target to hit. I feel like using drones to destroy the rail would make more sense, because they're more like accurate, and I don't really see what the point is of using like a bigger charge than you need. But anyways, in other words, UK intelligence shows Russia putting back in place the 8 previously damaged barrier barges on the southern side of the Kerch Strait. In other words, the Russians are worried about the bridges. Also, bridges aren't exactly easy to destroy. Bridges are pretty tough. And I don't know if if you destroy a section of the bridge, I don't think that just makes the entire bridge explode like a video game. I don't know, maybe an ATACMS can destroy a bridge, maybe not. My understanding is it's hard to hit a bridge with something like that. So, I don't know. Let's see here. So this is the range of the ATACMS. As you can see, the ATACMS can hit all of Russia. There's nowhere in Russia that cannot be hit by the ATACMS missiles. I mean, look at this. I like how Belarus is included, because fuck Belarus. We're going to fire at them too. This can obviously hit like everywhere in Russia. The Ukrainians, a storm shadow into one of the... Okay, so we have all these, just this meme stuff. Some have even started to consider if this might be the moment for an amphibious landing of some sort by Ukraine. The Ukrainians have already made determined efforts to get across the Dnipro River, but that was a complete and total disaster. A complete and total shit show. Was that happened. But the classic use of amphibious assaults, Westerners would see that inconceivable. It's worth noting. So basically what they're saying is the ATACMS are going to allow them to take out Crimea. Somehow when Crimea is taken down, then they're going to... the Russian government's going to collapse, and then Russia's going to be divided up and be, I don't know. So that's the plan. That's the plan. We have the 200 ATACMs. We're going to fire them at the Kerch Bridge. We're going to fire them at the railway. That's going to cut off Crimea. Somehow that means Crimea is going to fall into Ukrainian hands because aircraft don't exist. Repairing stuff doesn't exist. And it's like, it's days away. It's days away. Okay, so that is the current cope. Now, our friend Lindsey Graham, the psychopath that he is, has talked about how he wants to loot Ukraine. Okay, here we go. This, Senator Lindsey Graham being a psychopath. Okay, Ukrainians are sitting on $10 to $12 trillion of critical mineral resources. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and okay, let's just play this because this is somebody's saying the quiet part out loud. Let's see what Lindsey Graham has to say.
They're sitting on $10 to $12 trillion of critical minerals in Ukraine. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. If we help Ukraine now, they can become the best business partner we ever dreamed of. That $10 to $12 trillion of critical mineral assets could be used by Ukraine and the West, not given to Putin and China. This is a very big deal how Ukraine ends. Let's help them win a war we can't afford to lose. Let's find a solution to this war. But they're sitting on a gold mine to give Putin $10 or $12 trillion of critical.
Well, I mean, it's not about giving it to Putin. It's about giving it to BlackRock and the MIC and all kinds of stuff like that. But this dude's such a psycho. So he's just saying that, oh, by the way, I keep getting this ad, which is amazing. I keep getting this Manitoba Agricultural Services Corporation calf price. Insure your calves before June 13th, and it's a red heifer. It's a red heifer. What do they know? What do they know about what's going to be happening with the red heifer calves? It's a good question. So that is the plan. Is Lindsey Graham, as I've said many times, is a psychopath. Basically, what he is saying is, we're going to make Ukraine into an economic colony of the United States. We're going to rape and pillage the land. We're going to take all of their mineral resources and we're going to give them to BlackRock. And that is the plan. That is the plan. But like I said, I think he's a psychopath. Where are we again? Okay, so that is that story. Now, let's get into... Okay, maybe let's get into EU election. So, I have to give some context as to what's happening in the world. So, to me personally... I thought that the EU election was a massive nothing burger. I don't think anything about it was really surprising. And I don't think it really ultimately changed much. Just trying to find the results, because I don't think it actually changed the overall... I'm just trying to find it. Maybe the results aren't completely done yet. Okay, results. Okay, so like the overall results are no change for the European People's Party. Or wait a minute, let's see here. I don't know. It's so confusing how they have this shit set up. Let's see here. Okay, confirmed it as the chamber's biggest block. Okay, so this is the final ones. So basically, this was the massive change, ladies and gentlemen. This is the gigantic thing that like this is, and I think it's important to keep in mind that these. Oh, okay. Well, you have to tell me these things. I can't tell how loud these things are sometimes. Okay. There we go. All right, so, European People's Party. Okay, well, just tell me to turn it off. I don't always know what my mic's picking up. Okay, European People's Party. So the European People's Party, the big change is it lost 1 seat. The Socialists lost 10 seats. The Liberals lost 19. The ECR gained 11. Identity and Democracy, the so-called far right, lost 18. And then some other randoids got some seats. So that is the big thing. That was the big thing that happened. This is the massive change. So that we are in the middle of like a huge meltdown in Europe. Like there is a total meltdown going on in a lot of countries over the results of this election. Now it's a little more significant in terms of the national election results, but even then, I don't really think it's that big a deal. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so let's see. France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Italy. Okay, so in is that Macron's? Which one's Macron's party? It's French Unbowed. I'm just trying to see here. Renew Europe. Okay, I'm just trying to figure this out. Okay. Oh, it's so annoying. Just, is that the results? Okay, who is this? Is that Macron's party? Okay, yeah. Okay, so the National Front, gained 7 seats. Macron lost 10 seats. The Socialist Party gained a couple. The French far left gained a couple, and that's about it. That's pretty much all that happened. I like the National Front picked up 8% of the vote. They picked up 8. They went from being the largest party to being and stayed the largest party. Macron got spanked, and pretty much everything else just stayed the same. Like it's not really significant. Now Macron had a massive spurg out over this, and he's called a new election. So France is going to have a new election, parliamentary election, and it's expected that a lot of people are saying, well, the National Front's going to win. I refuse to call them the National Rally because it's a lame name. But I don't know. Like, people have to keep in mind that the French election system is specifically set up to prevent the FN from ever winning an election. Because they have a runoff system, which basically means that literally everybody is going to vote for them, vote against them. So I don't even think under these circumstances. Also keep in mind the French people voted for Macron twice. So, like, I don't know. As I've said many times, if France wanted something different, they would have something different. Like, let's not let's not pretend. Let's not live in pretend world. So that was the big one. And then in Germany, the AfD picked up 4 seats. Four whole. I sometimes forget you can't. I talk with my hands a lot. You can't see it. The AfD picked up 4. They got 16% of the vote. Whoa, man. It's over. They went from 11% of the vote to 15.5% of the vote. The CDU went from 29 to 30%. The Greens the Greens fell a lot. That's actually quite a bit, to be honest. The SPD, I guess the SPD went, no, that's federal election. Okay. Okay. So, but that is the big, that is the big switch. So, like, all this stuff we heard about, the AfD is the biggest party in Germany. They're going to just win. They're just going to blow through it, and stuff like that. I don't know. According to this, that is not the case. Now, the Nazbol party does seem to have picked up a bunch of seats, too. So, take that for what you will. So this is that's the big one there. In Greece, the nationalist parties, the far right and far left parties picked up a couple seats. The ruling party lost like 1. And there was a turnout of 40. In Hungary, like nothing happened. In Italy, there was a big switch. Liga lost a bunch of seats to Brothers of Italy. So the one right-wing populist party lost seats to the other right-wing populist party. And this is the big like twist. So all the European leadership are spurring out. Ursula von der Leyen's like, look, we're under threat of fascism. The whole thing is collapsing. We have to stop the rise of these right-wing populists. We have to stop the rise of these right-wing populists. We got to stop them. Even though they like didn't really gain any seats. Also, the right-wing blocs in the EU have just always been a dumpster fire. Identity and democracy gets, like, whatever it is gets destroyed every couple of years and rebuilt into something else. There was freedom and direct democracy. There's just been so many of these like variations of it. The ECR, I don't even really know why it exists at this point now. That it's funny because the British Conservatives founded it, which is why they have the British Conservative Lion. But anyway, so my point is, it was just a massive nothing burger. People are trying to make a big deal out of it. Macron's calling an election. People in Germany are in full on like meltdown cope mode. They're like, they're trying to bring back Nazi Germany. This is the beginning of it. Maloney took votes away from Lega Norda, who I prefer. I think Liga's better than Brothers of Italy. And so they're saying, like, look, we gotta try to figure this out. So we've got to go hard. We need to centralize the EU more. We need more crackdowns on freedom of speech, and we need to go and escalate the war in Ukraine. We need to escalate the war in Ukraine. So that is the context. Everybody's freaking out. Macron's freaking out. Germany's freaking out. The UK's freaking out. A lot of people on the right or populist people are in cope mode. And they're like, this is amazing. This is a sign that we're winning. That there was basically no change whatsoever. So, and the background of this panic, we're trying to figure out like what's even going on. Okay, so the Russian offensive continues to just kind of lurch forward all across the front line. Now, I've heard that Russia has moved a number of armored brigades or armored divisions up here, but they've not been deployed yet. So we aren't really sure still what's going on in Kharkov. If they are going to be, how far they're going to go, if there's going to be an attack on Kharkov. Now, Putin said there wasn't going to be one. They weren't planning one at the moment a couple weeks back, but that might have changed. They do, I think, have some substantial armed forces here, so if they wanted to launch an offensive, they could. Meanwhile, on the rest of the front, they're just continuing to push. Little by little. Let's see here. Okay, where is Chasiv Yar? It just keeps kind of going. Yeah, Chasiv Yar. They're making substantial progress in Chasiv Yar. I think the micro district on the east of the canal is captured now. I'm not sure how long the fight in Chasiv Yar proper will last. What I've been hearing is that I have to find that other COPE article. I think we're going to take a field trip. Institute for the Study of War. Because they did like one of the biggest COPE articles I've ever seen recently. I'm just trying to find where it is. I'm just trying to find this. I forget where it was. I'll have to find it. But they did a thing like saying how like the Ukrainian army is better because it had no training. I think was basically. I bet that's basically the case. It's something like that. I have to find it. That article at some point in time. But basically, they said something to that effect. Okay, so. Is your so sorry, Froggy, is your contention that Deep State UA is run by TASS? I'm gonna have to see some receipts on that one because I'm pretty sure it's not run by the Russian government. Okay, so we're making some progress there. Once again, Avdiivka, it just seems like there's something of a breakthrough, at least by the standards of this half of the war. And they're just kind of gradually pushing forward all across the front line. And so this is where we're at. We have Europe is in total meltdown. At least the establishment at the moment. They're afraid that they're going to be forced into some sort of peace negotiation because all these like pro-Russian parties won 1 billion seats. There's going to be a peace bloc now. It's basically Russia controlled the entirety of the EU elections. Okay, so Froggy's claim is that Deep State UA is run by TASS. Okay, well. Okay, I mean, I think that says all you need to know about his understanding of the conflict. Let's see here. What was I looking at again? Okay. There is a lot of panic going on in Washington and in Europe. I don't know if anybody's been noticing, but things have been very chaotic lately. We have Macron once again announcing we're going to be sending trainers, but then we're not going to be sending trainers, and we're not going to be authorizing the missiles, but then we're going to be authorizing the missiles, and it keeps going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you just hear a lot of just complete chaos. Now the latest meme that I have heard, and I don't have the article in front of me, but they've decided that what they're going to do is when the F-16s show up, the F-16s are going to be based in Romania. The F-16s are going to be based in Romania. So what they're going to do is the F-16s are going to fly from Romania to air bases in Ukraine, and then they will go from the air base in Ukraine to attack Russia, and then go back to the air base in Ukraine, and then go back to Romania. And that is going to be the plan. We're going to keep the aircraft outside of Ukraine. And we're just going to hope that like Russia just lets us do that. That Russia lets us do that they don't decide to shoot at the aircraft in Romania. That is the current plan. Ukraine's also said we need all kinds of air defense to protect the aircraft, which makes you wonder what the entire point of this whole thing is. So that is the plan. Now, some might say that this is a really bad idea, that this is going to piss off the Russians and this is going to be a massive escalation. Now, once again, I don't see how these planes are not going to be piloted by NATO pilots or mercenaries or whatever the excuse they want to use is. Because the training was going so poorly for the Ukrainians that they were going to do it. I don't know if they're ready to even fly the aircraft, let alone fly them into a high-intensity war zone. I still think these are going to be flown probably by NATO pilots. And imagine if Russia shoots it down and they capture a NATO pilot. Like, imagine if what they decide. Okay, so imagine a plane, an F-16 takes off from Romania, piloted by a German pilot. It gets shot down over Russian lines. They capture the German pilot. Now you have a NATO plane being flown from a NATO country by a NATO pilot directly attacking the Russians. And that is the plan. But once again, this whole thing is so like cockney and like done on a day-to-day basis that I don't even know if they're going to do that. They might come up with something else. Like, once again, these things just kind of happen. So I don't know. They're going to send 70 in. Germany's announced they're going to send, I think, all the remaining air defenses. Let me see here. Europe, 5% of needed air defense. Okay, so according to the Financial Times, far right pro-Russian source, NATO currently has 5% of the air defenses it needs to protect its eastern flank. So, yeah. But Russia's losing, guys. Russia is losing. Russia's incompetent. Stuff like that. It's we only have 5% though. I think Germany's sending its last couple Patriot. Germany Patriot missiles to Ukraine. So I think, let's see, Germany. Yeah, they're basically just sending, I think, most of what's left of their Patriot defense systems. So some people might think that, you should be kind of keeping some of those in reserve, but apparently not. Use Patriots to take out a slew of Russian aircraft, a lot. They are intercepting Kinzhal missiles. It's definitely happened, guys. They're definitely shooting down the hypersonic missiles. Is it even possible to shoot down hypersonic missiles? I still don't think it actually is. It is possible, to my understanding. So that is where we're at the moment. Um, Now, what's going to happen in a week when Ukraine runs out of ATACMS and that wonder weapon goes away? I think once again, NATO is increasingly going to be faced with the choice: do we escalate or do we back down? Because I honestly don't know what cards they have left to play at this point in time, beyond just some sort of direct intervention. Now, I don't think a land intervention is really in the cards. I don't think that they could scrape. I don't think NATO could scrape together. They could scrape together enough land forces to really make a difference. From the estimates I've seen, like the UK, France, and Germany could each raise something like 20 to 30,000 men if they had like 6 months, or it's something like that. It's some very small number, and if they're gonna get like 60 to 80,000 soldiers and send them to Ukraine, like that's not gonna make a difference. It would help out. It would probably help the situation out substantially, but it's not enough to turn the tide of this war. It's not enough to, and that's assuming like that they could get them there and that they have the weapons for them and the logistics and lots of stuff like that. I think the main thing that Russia would be worried about is the U.S. committing its air power, because the U.S., to my understanding, still does have a much more powerful air force than Russia does. Now, regarding a land war between Russia and America, I just don't think America could realistically get enough of its army to there in time to be able to like definitively shift the war. I also think if America commits its entire land force, the Russians might start using atomics at that point in time. If America starts deploying hundreds of thousands of guys there, I don't think there is the political will to do that in the United States. I could be wrong, though. The issue is, at the moment, Russia just kind of has total ground superiority. That's not to say if NATO didn't have a year to get ready, the U.S. can get 200,000. I didn't say the U.S.'s logistics. I specifically said Britain, Germany, and France's logistics. I don't think are necessarily good enough to get 20 to 30,000 people there. I said I'm not sure if the U.S. could get like 200, like a number that they would need to turn the tide of the land war without in an amount of time, because I feel like Russia would either start pushing or something would happen. I don't think that they would let that happen one way or another. I don't see why that's like such a insane statement. So the US Air Force could still do something. But once again, we have the whole issue of China. Does the U.S. really want to use all their weaponry in some sort of war with Russia? Even if the U.S. Air Force could turn the tide of this. Let's just say it could. I've never doubted that the U.S. Air Force isn't extremely powerful. Even assuming the Russians had no air defense, American weapons are so expensive in such limited quantities. That's going to be trillions and trillions of dollars. They only produce like 100 of some of these missiles a year. Their stocks will just disappear basically overnight, and it's going to take another couple decades to replenish them. So, yeah, they could do that. That's also not keeping into account, like, the Russians have very good air defenses. The Russians have good electronic warfare. A lot of U.S. aircraft would get shot down. Once again, I'm not saying it's going to be a slaughter or anything, but I don't know. And that's really the only way I can see them reversing at this point in time. And I kind of feel the danger is that we have a lot of there's a general lack of communication. So Putin has repeatedly stated he has his specific red lines. Now, most of the so-called red lines are actually red lines that NATO has set up and then breached and then pretended that they were Russian red lines. I don't know if NATO's actually penetrated it, gone past any Russian red lines yet. I think the strikes deep into Russia with long-range missiles programmed by NATO engineers with NATO satellite data is a red line, and directly just and openly sending a whole bunch of soldiers en masse to Ukraine is a red line. But I don't think that the tanks ever were. I don't think that the aircraft were, or the air defense systems were. I think that was a red line in Europe, but I don't think that was a red line in Russia. Now, something I've noticed, if you ever follow Putin at all, he's been very belligerent lately. He's just basically said, like, look, if the U.S. wants to go nuclear on this one, we'll go nuclear on this one. If the U.S. wants to go for full-scale war, we don't want it, but we will. And that's been kind of what he's been saying, and he's been pretty blatant about that over the last couple of weeks. Very belligerent, very much saying that we are not going to back down on this. If you start flying planes out of Romania, we're going to attack those airfields and stuff like that. Something you will see in the Western media, though, is they never like reference any of these things. Like Putin can give speeches in Kyrgyzstan or Moscow or the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and he can lay out his entire war plan. He can lay out his red lines. He can lay that stuff out. And the Western media will just not pick it up. The people at the Pentagon and the CIA and the State Department obviously don't read any of the press releases the Kremlin puts out. So they just ignore that. And they're just saying, oh, Putin's just stupid. Putin's a pussy. He's not going to do anything. We're just going to ignore him. It tends to be how it is. And once again, there's a tendency for them to just put a moral like spin on this, like, and go, well, Putin's evil, so we shouldn't listen to him. And it's like, well, I don't care if he's like Mao Zedong. If he's publicly making statements and telling you something, I kind of feel you should take that seriously and maybe try to take that into account. But this whole war has just been based off of the idea that Russia is just there. Like, we're having this peace conference in Switzerland that Russia's not invited to. The U.S. has started to try to gaslight Russia again into thinking that they want a ceasefire. And so this is where we get, after an hour of me rambling on, to the whole geopolitical Jenga of this. We have an EU that is currently panicking over the results of the election. We have a U.S. that is facing multiple political crises, indictment of Trump. Hunter got convicted today. I don't think that really matters. I don't think that really matters. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But it is something. Trump is surging in the polls. Trump raised a whole bunch of money, like more money than the entire Biden campaign did in its entire campaign in something like in like 4 days. More and more people are starting to say that like Joe is just he's just gone. The dementia's just eaten away his brain. I forget if it was Time. It might have been Time or the New York Times or something. A couple papers recently ran some articles about how Joe Biden's cognitive decline is very prevalent. So you have like nobody. No, the lights are on there. I don't think anybody's home though. So I don't even like who's even in charge of the U.S. government at this point in time. It's chaotic there. It's chaotic in Europe. It's chaotic in Ukraine. Zelensky is getting increasingly desperate and unstable. There's been another rash of articles. Actually, there's an interesting one. They actually were attacking. Okay, so the Financial Times went after Zelensky for like one of his like few W's. So the Financial Times won't let me read it, but basically, this guy got pushed out of his post as the head of Ukrainian reconstruction because Zelensky was mad at him. Now, Zelensky has purged a lot of people. Zelensky's purged a lot of people over time. A lot of them deserved it, a lot of them didn't. This was the guy who was in charge of building fortifications in the Kharkov region. And you think maybe if someone was going to be fired, accuses government of undermining the agency building fortifications against Russia. That went well. That went really fucking well. That went good. Also, to my understanding, Kamala is currently very unpopular in Washington. I've heard some reports about that too. The other like scheme they've come up with is sending a bunch of Mirage jets to Ukraine. I don't know how that's supposed to help really. Don't they have to train them to operate the Mirage jets? No, but the West is like America's made this out like this is some crazy like getting rid of this dude, and like, but like he was in charge of the fucking border defenses that didn't happen. So I mean, if this is like one of the few logical things that Zelensky has done, but they were the BlackRock or whoever was upset about it, probably because they were the ones who made the money off of it. Let's see here. The top official overseeing Ukraine, its defense, fortifications, and reconstruction efforts. He did one hell of a good job on that one. Systemic obstacles that made him difficult for him to use his powers effectively. What a cope. Reconstruction efforts. Okay, so recent months. Personnel changes. Country's defense minister was removed. Yeah, so a bunch of like officials were saying that this was a really bad thing. Now, I don't have the article in front of me, but to my understanding, if you start to look at what the composition of the Ukrainian army is, they've started to send a large number of 60-year-olds, I believe. I think I had heard that. I'm gonna have to find that article, but I've heard that that is getting common in Ukraine to recruit people that old, to start throwing them into the meat grinder with basically no training. I don't know, just about everything I've heard at this point in time. Pretty much everything at this point in time I've heard is that they're just throwing people in with basically no training. So I'm sure it's going to be lowered. The West is pushing Zelensky to lower the conscription age to 18, which they've been very loath to do because A, there just aren't that many young people in Ukraine, and B, Ukraine already has a massive population problem, and that's not going to make things better. So that's going on. I just like to remind everybody what Zelensky said a couple months back. Zelensky says 31,000 troops have died since Russia's full-scale invasion. Well, then, I mean, things are great. That is once again, I don't see why they're having a problem. Like, why is there a manpower shortage? They've taken virtually no losses so far. So, Russia, I'm not sure what they're going to do. Now, Russia has this concept called strategic ambiguity. And basically what they've said is they haven't said anything. They don't really announce their plans ahead of time. We don't really know. We don't know if Russia is going to keep just quietly going along and gradually taking ground, continuing to try to destroy equipment with their missiles. We don't know if they're planning a big offensive at Kharkov or Kupiansk, or if Chasiv Yar is the goal, or if they're planning something on Kherson. There's so many different possibilities, and we really have no idea what they're going to do. And so Russia is having to try to figure out what is the U.S. going to do and what is Europe going to do, because they're in panic mode. We have stuff being announced every day. Expeditionary forces, no expeditionary forces, planes based out of Romania, planes not based out of Romania. Macron calling snap elections. Ursula von der Leyen saying, I'm pro-Ukraine. We're going to get this whole thing going. And you just have all this stuff, this stuff happening. So if you're Putin, what do you do? Do you go, okay, this is the moment before they can figure out what the fuck they're doing? Let's launch the big offensive. Let's try to go for broke. Let's try to collapse Ukraine and get the Zelensky government to implode. Or do you go, well, we have to be very slow and cautious because I don't know what the U.S. is doing. Biden might decide to start a war because he figures that's the only way he can win re-election. The EU might try to do that. I don't know. The point is, we're dealing with a whole bunch of actors here, none of whom are talking to each other, many of whom are largely irrational and don't have any particular explanation. So, I don't know what to say. That's just where they are. But once again, no one has talked about negotiating with Russia. There's been no talk of that. There's no talk of sitting down with Putin and trying to come to some sort of agreement on this. That is the one thing that they refuse to do. So, once again, this is Schrodinger's war. This is an everything and nothing war at the same time. The front lines could collapse tomorrow. They could collapse in 3 months. NATO could decide to go all in tomorrow. They could decide to give up for tomorrow. Everything about this is just very opaque. And as I've said many times throughout this conflict, more than anything else, that is the thing that really scares me about this, is that I get the impression nobody has any kind of plan. Like, the US doesn't have a plan. The EU doesn't have a plan. Russia might have a plan, but they're very opaque about it, which normally would be a good thing, but it's not a good thing when you're trying to deal with another side that doesn't have one. And we had the whole thing with them trying to start like the shit with China, and I don't know. It's just crazy. And I don't know what's going to happen heading up to the election. Once again, I could see Biden starting a war as an attempt, as thinking that's the only way he has to, the only possible solution he has to win re-election is to start a war to try to convince the American people they can't change presidents during a war. But I don't know. So that is the situation on the front. It's just kind of a mess at the moment. Hopefully that was at least somewhat coherent. As always, I hope that people enjoy